welcome to your deep dive. We're diving into One Constitution Why and How.pdf today. It's all about, well, constitutions. Using the Indian Constitution as like this prime example.
It's a really interesting case study. See, we often think of constitutions as these like static, unchanging documents.
Right.
They're more like living, breathing blueprints for a society.
Totally. And it's not just history, right?
Yeah.
This stuff, it impacts like your everyday life. I mean, from how laws are made to how your rights are protected, it's the real deal.
Exactly. And this document, it starts by asking this really powerful question, like, what if there were no agreed upon rules for a society? Imagine that a diverse group of people, all with their own different beliefs and values and needs, just trying to coexist, like without any framework.
It's a total chaos.
It would be chaos. Everyone just looking out for themselves,
Yeah.
disagreements, spiraling out of control, no way to ensure fairness.
Definitely not.
Or to protect individual rights. And the reading, it really highlights how a constitution provides those ground rules, you know? It's like creating a common language for navigating all those disagreements and pursuing some shared goals as a society.
Right, totally.
Yeah.
And it's not even just about like setting the rules. It's also about, well, who gets to make them in the first place? This document, it goes into all these different systems, like monarchies and single-party rule and democracies, of course.
And even within democracies, it's the Constitution that like lays out the how, you know? Like, how are representatives chosen? What powers does each branch of government actually have?
It's all in the details.
It is. These details, people often overlook them, but they actually determine the entire power dynamics of a whole nation.
It's true. It's like building a house, right? You need that good foundation, the framework, the walls, the roof. You can't just, wing it.
Exactly.
And a constitution, it's like outlining those essential elements of a functioning society. It's the blueprint.
It is the blueprint, yeah.
So we've kind of laid out there that constitutions are like the blueprints, for how a society actually functions. But this reading that you gave us, it takes it even further. Like, it's not just about like limitations and restrictions, but also about hopes, aspirations.
Absolutely. And they use the Indian Constitution as a fantastic example of this.
Right.
It's not just saying, no discrimination. It's really about empowering the government to like actively pursue equality.
Okay, so it's less about setting like hard boundaries and more like giving directions, maybe.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's about setting goals and then figuring out, okay, how do we actually get there?
Right.
And the document actually, it specifically mentions these things called directive principles within the Indian Constitution. These principles, they're really fascinating because they're not actually like legally enforceable in court. But they set these really important goals for like social and economic justice. Things like, making sure all workers have a living wage or promoting healthcare and education for everyone.
Oh, that's really interesting. So it's less about like what citizens are entitled to right here, right now, and more about like what the nation as a whole, like what they're aiming for down the line.
Yeah, exactly. You got it.
Right.
It's about long-term vision.
Okay.
The Indian Constitution, it was shaped by its own history, its own struggles, and it takes this really kind of proactive approach to achieving, a just and equitable society for everyone.
Right.
And it's not the only one. The reading, it draws this really interesting parallel with the South African Constitution, which obviously, was forged from this incredibly intense period of dismantling apartheid.
Right. So they had very, very specific challenges.
Absolutely.
Very deep-rooted issues that they were trying to address.
Both of these constitutions, they recognize that achieving true equality, it requires more than just saying, don't discriminate. It demands this kind of proactive approach to correct these historical wrongs.
So it's not enough to just say, don't do the bad thing. You have to actively do the good things.
Yes. You have to build mechanisms for progress. And that's what makes studying these constitutions so fascinating.
Yeah.
They give us a glimpse into how nations can really embed these aspirations for a better future directly into, like, the DNA of their governance, how they're run.
It's like they anticipated the need for like course correction.
Yeah.
Knowing that just saying don't do bad things doesn't automatically lead to a perfect society.
Exactly. It's like you gotta set the wheels in motion for continuous progress.
Right.
Always striving for that more perfect union,
Okay, so we talked about the why of constitutions. This reading, it also digs into the how, specifically how India went about like actually creating its constitution in the first place.
Yeah, it's actually a really fascinating process.
Yeah.
They assembled this thing called the Constituent Assembly, which was this diverse group of elected representatives, and they were given this like monumental
Wow,
task.
wow. So like a constitutional convention, kind of.
Yes, exactly. But it wasn't just some formality.
Right.
This document, it highlights all these like intense debates and deliberations that were going on. They were grappling with these really fundamental questions about like what should the structure of the government look like? What about the balance of power and of course the rights of citizens?
It really makes you realize the weight of what they were doing.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
weren't just like debating these abstract ideas. They were shaping the future of a nation. So they had this like huge responsibility, right, to build a constitution for a brand new country.
Yeah.
What were some of the like the big debates that shaped how it all turned out?
Well, according to this document, one of the biggies was how centralized or decentralized the government should be. Like, should India have a really strong central authority calling all the shots, or should the states have more autonomy?
Right, right. It's that classic balance, finding that sweet spot.
Exactly. And they looked at all these different models from around the world,
Oh, cool.
trying to figure out what might work best. They ended up going with a federal system, kind of like a balance of power between the central government and the states.
Yeah, so you have that like that national unity, but also that regional flexibility.
Exactly. And speaking of looking at other models, the reading mentions how the framers of the Indian Constitution, they weren't afraid to borrow ideas from other constitutions.
Smart. Why reinvent the wheel?
Right.
If it works somewhere else.
Exactly. The document, it specifically mentions how they took inspiration from the American Bill of Rights.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. The British parliamentary system and even the Irish Constitution.
Wow. They really shopped around.
They did. They wanted to see what worked in other places and then, adapt those ideas to fit India's specific needs and challenges, like
Huh.
take the best and make it their own.
So it was a real team effort then, kind of, drawing on the wisdom of other democracies that came before them.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It shows how constitution making, it's not about starting from scratch. It's about recognizing that, good ideas can come from many sources. And the real skill is in like refining them, and adapting them to create something new and relevant to your own unique situation.
Absolutely. And speaking of adapting, this reading, it really stresses how crucial it is for a successful constitution to be and I love this phrase, a living document.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean, though, like in real world terms?
It means that a constitution, it can't be stuck in the past, right? It needs to be able to like adapt and evolve as society changes around it.
So that it stays relevant.
Exactly. It's like the document uses this metaphor of a tree.
Oh, cool. Okay.
A tree needs strong roots to weather storms, obviously.
To stay grounded.
Yes. But it also needs branches that are flexible enough to bend in the wind.
So that balance of like stability, but also that flexibility.
Yeah, exactly. A constitution, it needs to uphold those core values and principles, the things that really matter.
Right.
But it also needs to be able to change with the times, to adapt to new problems and new realities.
That makes a lot of sense. The world changes so quickly. I mean, even just thinking about the last few decades,
Absolutely.
a constitution is too rigid. It would be like constantly outdated.
It would be completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
And the Indian Constitution, it's a perfect example of how to do it right.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, it's been amended, are you ready for this, over 100 times since it was first adopted.
Wow. 100 times.
Over 100 times. Which just goes to show that it's been able to adapt to the changing needs of the country without, losing that core essence that makes it so important.
So it's like proof that it actually works, this whole living document thing.
Exactly. And that brings us to another really crucial point that this reading emphasizes. For a constitution to be truly successful, it needs to, resonate with the people, the people it's actually meant to govern.
It's not just some document that's like locked away in a vault somewhere.
Yeah.
It has to actually be part of their lives.
Yes. It needs to reflect their shared values, their hopes for the future, even their struggles.
So it's like a reflection of the people themselves in a way.
Exactly. When a constitution manages to do that, to really capture the essence of a nation, it becomes way more than just a set of rules. It becomes a unifying force, and it gives everyone a roadmap for how to move forward together, how to build that better future.
That's amazing. This deep dive has really been eye-opening. I think we often forget how important constitutions are. We see them as these dry, complicated documents, but they really are living, breathing things that shape our lives in so many ways.
They really do. And they remind us that, at the end of the day, it's all about people. It's about protecting our rights, pursuing our dreams, and creating a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So, for anyone listening, let this be a reminder that constitutions are about more than just rules on paper. They're about building the kind of future we want to see.